Hello, and welcome to ISG's podcast, Peering Beyond the Lens. I'm your host, Ken Presti. In today's episode, we're taking a look at the recent ISG Provider Lens report entitled Future of Work, Services and Solutions. Remember how we all went scurrying to our home offices when COVID-19 hit the scene? That led to a lot of dialogue around how to keep the bases covered. That dialogue continues, except now it's about how to optimize work in a hybrid model. Meanwhile, a new generation is entering the workforce, and they have their own ideas about what work should be like in the form of an increased emphasis on employee experience. My guest has 15 years of experience in the IT industry, focusing on enterprise pain points, digital transformation, and, of course, the future of work. He's the lead analyst on today's report. Say hello to Mrinal Rai. Hi, Mrinal, and welcome to the program. Wanted to ask you about change in the workplace, especially since COVID. I know this is covered in your report. Would you say that things are stabilizing, or is the pace of change picking up even more than it was before?
Hi, Ken. Thank you for having me. And yes, you're right. The pandemic has actually accelerated a lot of shift towards digital transformation across all enterprises. And workplace is at the forefront of all these changes. As employees were working from different locations of their choice, enterprises are now evaluating how do they go forward, what kind of workplace strategy they're going to adopt, whether remote working, in office working, or more importantly hybrid working. So yes, there is a significant changes and significant challenges for enterprises. Earlier, workplace transformation was only about enterprise IT organization initiatives, about enabling the devices, enabling the applications on users mobile and laptops. Now it is much more beyond that. I think it's more about employee experience now, irrespective of where they are located. So yes, it is changing.
Okay, so from the standpoint of the enterprise decision maker, on the one hand, it might sound like, figuring out these types of changes is a pretty straightforward process. But I'm also thinking that when you dig down into it, it's probably not all that simple and straightforward. If I'm a client and I'm looking at making these sorts of changes, what do you suggest I do in terms of building a methodology so that I can do that right the first time?
I think the most important part of it is to understand what defines your employee experience. Now, employee experience is a very broad term, and what defines their experience, especially in the time when you have those great resignation and talent crunch, and people kind of dissatisfied with their organization. So, multiple things define an employee experience, but most of it, interestingly, can be measured through their usage of technology. So there's a massive amount of information that gets generated because of the technology usage of these employees. So the best part is to understand your employees need and what kind of information you can get at the moment out of all those technology usage that can define the employee experience for your organization, and which, by the way, can be different for multiple industries. For example, a healthcare worker working from an hospital versus providing a telemedicine or telehealth kind of services from their home, the needs and the experiences will be completely different. So first of the starting point would be to identify the areas that define the experience of your employees and end users irrespective of their working location, and to start from there.
In terms of employee experience, that's a term that is fairly new to the industry these days. We've heard a lot about customer experience. We've even heard about partner experience in terms of the people in the supply chain, the resellers, the MSPs, and those types of people. When did employee experience become such an important aspect of business, and how did that come to emerge?
I think employee experience is an area that is actually not new, and there have been some focus towards it. But that, as you said, many enterprises were always looking at enhancing the experience of their end customers, or CX, as you see. But employee experience focus, the focus towards employee experience is kind of fairly new. The simple reason is that the world is facing a lot of crunch with respect to talent, and challenges within enterprises to make sure that they retain the talent. And how can you retain the workforce that you have? It's only because when you're ensuring that the employees are having a good experience with their organization. It can be about the organization's association, like how employees feel, how well they are connected with the workforce, with the organization, its mission and values. And secondly, what kind of experience they are getting out of the usage of the tools and technologies that they use to make them deliver a better service to their customers. So I think these are the kind of things that are defining employee experience these days, and that's why it is becoming a topic of interest.
So it basically comes down to supply and demand, kind of like anything else. What would you say has been driving the great resignation? We tend to point at it as a COVID related thing as people got used to working from home. But is there more depth to it than that? Or is there more in different aspects to the overall employment equation that are coming into play here?
I think when we did this report, especially in the US, we saw that there's a lot of focus on hybrid working, and COVID actually ensured that people can work from the location of their choice. And the most of the great resignation was driven by the fact that not many organizations were adaptive in those kind of working conditions. As we see the pandemic kind of started becoming an endemic, some clients thought of and started to open their offices, forcing their employees to be in office 5 days a week, and that wasn't actually working for many of those workforce who have actually seen that they can work from the location of their choice with same or maybe enhanced productivity. So the organizations which were not able to provide that kind of flexibility were seeing more resignations and more people leaving the organization. The flexibility of being able to work from the location of their choice was actually one of the prime factors that we identified is driving employee resignation or the great resignation in not just in US, in other geographies as well.
And how is all this impacting overall efficiency? There was a time when employers would look at the prospect of having people working from home and they'd say, oh, no way, they're going to be sitting around watching TV. They're going to be doing whatever domestic chores they've got. We really can't depend on them to actually get their work done. I think we're seeing that that's not the case. Um, is it even in some respects, I might think it might be even more productive because you've got fewer distractions around. What are you seeing in that respect?
I think the multiple research studies tell us that, and in fact, we have also highlighted in our report that the productivity of employees working from remote location have actually increased. Although there is a difference in how you actually define productivity, it could be whether what you're working, whether you are performing, you are delivering a result, or are you actually enhancing your skills? In all these definitions, I think having that flexibility to work in the way they want was actually enhancing the productivity. And it's not just about how they work and the technologies that they use. It's also about the managing culture. Like earlier people were working in an office and the cubicles, and they have to conform to the norms of in office working. While working from the location of their choice, there have been a lot of focus around uh, enterprise management as well. That means that enterprises understand that you need a different kind of management skills when dealing with people working from location of their choice. That means that if you are on a video call and your child can come in the background, it is not seen as something exceptional, or it's not people accept that. And I think those are the kind of cultural changes that technology is kind of inducing in multiple organizations with respect to remote working.
Let's take a quick look at some of the market conditions impacting today's discussion. First, enterprises are looking to design a workplace technology experience that suits the user persona, regardless of whether they work from the office or a remote location. Next, enterprises recognize the gig economy is here to stay, and they want to build a strategy that optimizes the benefits of that trend. Next, keeping the team together has become more challenging than it ever was in the past, so move over customer experience and partner experience. Employee experience is taking a seat at the table. Employee well-being and empathy have emerged as business imperatives. Next, companies are adopting what are called smart physical workspaces that enhance employee experience. Now, back to the conversation. And what are you seeing in terms of generational effects? We are at a point in time right now where Gen Z is beginning to enter the workforce, and there's been a lot published and a lot of discussion around how their expectations and how they work is fundamentally different from the generations that came before them. What are you seeing in that regard?
That's a very interesting question, Ken, and that's something that we highlighted in our report as well, especially in the US, and it's also applicable to a large extent to other geographies as well. That the Gen Z that is entering into the workplace or has already entered into the workplace, they have a different kind of unique characteristics, or there are different things that they're looking for in the enterprises. Now, this generation has grown up in the virtual world. They have been to Snapchat, and they've been to Instagram. So virtual world is not something new for them. Working remotely or connecting with peers who are not in front of them is not new for them. So that was the easy part. The hard part is to connect with the employees of different other generations working with them. So they do want to go to office and to connect with the how do they connect with the vision of the enterprises? How do they make sure that the company culture gets inculcated to them while they're working from location of the choice? That's a sort of challenge for them. In addition to that, this generation and maybe the next one, that we call Gen Alpha, that will enter the workforce in the near future. Another There are multiple other things that motivates them, that they just don't look at their employment from monetary gain perspective. They also want to see what their organization is taking stand on many geopolitical and social issues, how well they are supporting inclusivity, diversity, for example. And they want to see their workplace supporting these initiatives through multiple channels, be it technology, be it policies. And those are the kind of different things that because of this generation, the enterprises have to deal with.
So, Mrinal, if I understand correctly, this new generation that's coming up on the scene, and probably the one that comes up after it, is looking at a lot more than profit and loss. They're looking at a lot more than just salary and benefits. There's this whole social aspect of it that I think many companies are not used to dealing with. You gave us some advice earlier in terms of the hybrid workforce and how companies can make those adjustments. Is there any additional recommendation that you would give with respect to the generational aspects?
I think, again, since we talk to a lot of enterprise customers and we talk to many vendors and service providers, one thing is very clear, that technology has a lot of potential and possibilities to help clients navigate through the challenges of future of work, be it technology related challenges itself or challenges associated with culture or behavior. Even small technology elements with respect to video conferencing, for example, or connecting workers remotely, can help induce some elements of inclusivity and diversity that this new workforce is expecting. Multiple technology elements that connect the remote workforce or the field workforce to the larger organization can help spread the vision of enterprises, make sure that everybody in the workforce and the enterprise connects with the overall enterprise message, irrespective of where they work from. They feel part of the organization. So technology has a lot of potential, and there are tools and technologies and service providers who are offering these services and technologies. So clients need to make maximum use of what is available through technologies. Of course, it's not just machines. You have to inculcate that human culture as well. But technology has a lot of scope, so clients should make best use of it.
So, all of this comes from an ISG market research report entitled The Future of Work, in which you were the lead analyst. Tell me about how that report came to be and what it's designed to deliver for the people who read it.
Sure. So ISG writes the ISG Provider Lens report around multiple technologies and areas every year. Future of work is one area where we have been writing for last 7 years. This was the seventh year of this report, and we are covering multiple markets: United States, United Kingdom, and multiple other countries. So these reports are aimed at helping enterprise clients and decision makers to identify the key technology service providers or vendors that they can collaborate with to make sure that they are progressing on the transformation agenda for their workplace transformation. Now, we have been doing this report for quite some time, and in this report, we do reach out to these service providers and vendors, asking them about their capabilities. We have a detailed methodology with which we evaluate how well their services and solutions are aligned to the needs of these enterprises, and based on that we do rate them on a quadrant or graphic representation to help enterprise clients make an easy actionable insight based decision of collaborating with these vendors and service providers. So this year's ISG Provider Lens Future of Work report also was done to highlight the key leaders and key vendors and service providers in the market who are providing these technology services and solutions to help clients navigate through these changes.
And based on that research and those discussions, how would you say that these vendors and service providers out there are adjusting their offerings to conform to kind of this new paradigm?
Yes, so very interestingly, the focus on employee experience, as I said, is kind of new, although employee experience itself is not new. So we have been talking to these vendors and service providers for quite some time, and many providers and vendors already had these capabilities of measuring the employee experience. However, not every client was so keen to have this as their priority. Come pandemic and now the post-pandemic world, this has become the top priority of almost every organization. So we are seeing a growing interest in these experience measurement. How do you measure the experience coming out of technology usage? There are multiple technology solutions that can enable you to do that. Now, what we have seen is changing is there is a lot of data that comes out of technology usage, and that can give an indication of changing or impacting employee experience. How to make use of that massive amount of data is something that every service provider is kind of focusing on. They are kind of changing their service delivery capabilities in what is called experience level agreements, as opposed to the service level agreements, which used to happen few years ago. And now we are seeing more and more acceptance for these experience level agreements with clients, where they are actually delivering their services to these enterprise customers, saying that we can enable those employee experience elements, and you can measure our performance based on how well we improve the experience of your employees. So every provider is focusing on these XLAs and measurement of technology usage experience. I think that is the massive change that we are seeing this year. Clients are actually looking very seriously at how to measure the employee experience, and providers and service providers and vendors are actually providing those services to do that.
Here are the key topics in ISG's Future of Work report, which offers a deep dive into the companies that can help you navigate these trends. Workplace Strategy Transformation Services, Managed Workplace Services for large companies, Managed Workplace Services for the mid-market, Digital Service Desk and Workplace Support Services, and Managed Employee Experience Services. Now, back to the interview. Take me a level deeper on XLA. So I'm used to hearing about service level agreements, or SLAs as we often call them. And by and large, those have mostly been about uptime. In the telephony world, it was about 5 nines of uptime and those sorts of things. And it was a fairly simple equation. Now I'm guessing that if you're going to have an experience level agreement, it's going to take on a lot of different dynamics. Help take us a level deeper on what those dynamics are.
Sure. Let's take a very simple example of when an employee reaches out to the service desk agent for some IT related issues. The service level agreements, the erstwhile service level agreements, would only look at the transactional elements of these services. For example, that's what we call the watermelon effect in our terminology. So it means that at the outside you can see all service level agreements are green, like the agent is performing as per the required uh, key performance indicators, but when you cut the watermelon you see it all red. So it is not actually delivering the right level of experience to the end user. For example, they reach out to a service desk agent, and service desk agent performance is tied to their, for example, average handling time, that is the AHT. How much so how much time they spend on a call. versus whether the employee was really satisfied, whether the issue was resolved or not. So the SLAs were looking at a very transactional level of the operational details of how a workplace support agent would work. The experience level, for example, can go at a very different level, not just measuring the operational level, but also whether it is actually delivering results for the end user or not. They can also expand to whether a business process is working efficiently or not. For example, if you onboard a new employee, earlier it used to take about 2 weeks, now it takes about 2 days. So that is a kind of enhancement in experience for a new employee that gets onboarded on the organization. And almost all of it is enabled by technology. So that is a level of experience, that measurement and experience level agreements that these service providers are signing with many enterprise clients.
And if I understand correctly, these types of elements are explored in your report and they are compared from one vendor to the next. Is that so?
Yes, that's correct. So all providers are focusing on experience level agreement, experience measurement, but what really differentiates them is what we focus on, because uh, it's like finding out the best among sort of equals. So that's what make this market a pretty challenging for enterprise client, because everybody is kind of offering similar stories. And how do we pick out the best one? So that's our job. That's what we have done in this report.
So once you get all this research done, you've done all these interviews, you've collected all this information, you've sorted through the data and cross-referenced all of this material. Now you're going to boil it down into specific quadrants. Walk
Yes.
me through what those quadrants are designed to deliver, and how they segment the market.
Sure. So this year's US report, future of work, we have four quadrant areas, or we say four areas where we compare service providers' capabilities. So one is the workplace strategy transformation services, where we compare whether service providers are able to help their enterprise clients on vision, a blueprint of their digital workplace, what all it requires to analyze the working pattern of their existing end users and how it is changing in the post-pandemic world. Are they able to help clients formulate a strategy for transformation of their workplace services? It's more about consulting capabilities and their ability to co-innovate and co-design with their client. That is one. The second quadrant is for managed end user technology services, which is sort of bread and butter services for the end user computing part and the traditional workplace service providers, which includes everything about your device enablement, device management, remote device enablement, or automated solutions to help enhance the experience. The third quadrant is managed digital service desk and workplace support services. So this is about actually reaching out to workplace support, whether reaching out to service desk agent or automated solutions where users can auto resolve their IT issues, and also providing field support services. So how much automation can happen in this area, and how can it enhance employee experience? The final one is about managed employee experience services, which is like a level higher than all of these, which can provide some business level outcomes coming out of these technology usage. And these experience level agreements are more tied to some business level outcomes for different industries, and catering them to different industry requirement is what differentiate providers there. So four quadrants for kind of maturity. You can look at it as four levels of maturity for service providers. That's how we have done it in this year.
This podcast series features interviews and information derived from ISG's Provider Lens reports, which detail practitioner led service provider comparisons empowered by ISG's advisory experience and data driven research. These reports offer independent vendor evaluations and purchase behavior segmentation. Provider positioning is based on a neutral and independent methodology. Provider participation is free of charge, but analysts evaluate all appropriate market players. To purchase the report featured in this podcast or to subscribe to the full series of ISG Provider Lens reports, please visit iplreports.com. Methodology information is also available on that same page. Once again, that URL, www.iplreports.com. When a company looks at making these types of changes from both a technological and a process perspective, That can often be a source of growing pains and a lot of effort in terms of getting the all the buy-in that is necessary to make these things happen. Once you do that and you move forward with these sorts of initiatives, you're very often called upon to be able to demonstrate payback or some sort of financial profitability that is probably part of the older paradigm and less about the social issues, but certainly something that most companies have to deal with and answer for to their superiors. What would you say are the primary ways that the enterprise decision makers can cost justify these types of efforts?
So I think there is a lot of focus on cost optimization itself. IT support and workplace technology enablement has traditionally been an area of cost optimization only, and that's why many service providers still have those capabilities as part of their IT infrastructure services, which is more focused on how to make clients optimize the cost, spend less, do more. We are seeing that sort of changing, this outlook kind of changing within clients, because it's not just about cost optimization anymore. And the modern enterprise IT organization are not kind of ignorant of the inherent line of business needs. And if you talk to any line of business leader or who is not an IT person, even they know about technology, and not just like page one of the user manual, but at least to page 10. So we are in an age where the IT leader knows about business and the leaders knows about IT. So that makes the job of service providers both interesting as well as challenging, because they not only have to justify the cost optimization part, but also have to tell them the related business outcome of their service offering. That means they have to deal with multiple business organization or enterprise organization apart from an IT. They will be talking to human resources to enable the employee experience, how it is having an impact on overall employee morale. They may have to talk to the line of business, because after all, it boils down to how what impact it's bringing to the business. You may have to talk to the marketing and sales people also, because how the customer experience and the sales part is getting impacted because of employee experience. So multiple new business functions are getting involved in this decision making, and that's how we see it's changing.
So, Mrinal, in the few minutes we have left, reiterate for me what is your best advice to the readers of the report and the customers out there that are taking these types of initiatives and trying to move them forward. What would you say they need to do now in order to take it to the next level? Understanding, of course, that they're probably all going to be at different levels, um, but nonetheless, what would you say is the some of the most important things that they need to do that may or may not often be overlooked?
Sure. So one part, definitely employee experience is not a new thing. Now every client we speak to is talking about employee experience. So clients have to understand that they may have ambitious goals with respect to employee experience. They have to start somewhere. And the technology is the first part where they have to start, starting with device enablement, service support, how well you are kind of automating the capabilities that can be automated, that can enhance users' interaction with the technology. So that is the first place that they should start with. They should look at how the massive data that comes out of technology usage through these solutions and services, how that data can be analyzed and make use of, and how can this data can be combined to generate a business level outcome, and to see whether the efforts that they're putting in enabling those technologies are actually delivering some business level results. And the most important part perhaps is to change the management culture. I think working in a hybrid and remote work is the most challenging part for the traditional management styles, where you're used to see your subordinates working in just next room. So you have to understand, to change the management culture, leverage the employee experience information that comes in, and how that can be used to change the way you talk to your subordinates, so that managers level knowledge and training is extremely important.
Mrinal Rai, Principal Analyst of ISG's Future of Work Report. Thank you so much for your time today. This is a really interesting one, and it involves so many different types of vertical markets and companies of different sizes, truly representing a sea change in how business is being conducted and how it will be conducted in the future. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much, Ken, for having me. Thank you.
And thank you for peering beyond the lens, an ISG podcast featuring interviews and information derived from ISG's Provider Lens reports, featuring independent vendor evaluations and purchase behavior segmentation from throughout the IT industry. I'm your host, Ken Presti. To purchase the report featured in this podcast or to subscribe to the full series of ISG Provider Lens reports, please visit iplreports.com. That's iplreports.com.